everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Genius Mindset. I'm so excited for our guest that we have today. We have Taylor Proctor here. Hi, Taylor.
Hi, thanks so much for having me on today.
Absolutely. So, if you want to just start, just tell us a little bit about who you are.
Yeah, so hi,
Right.
like you said, my name is Taylor Proctor, and I am a business coach. So I help business owners at all levels get good at business so they can get back into the heart of why they got into business in the first place. And a little bit about me and my background personally is I spent 15 years in corporate, really emphasizing on marketing, operations, leadership, and strategy across those 15 years, and have been able to pull from that to be able to support smaller business owners as they really look to thrive and grow. I often work with owners, like I said, at many varying levels, but the commonalities are that they have a vision, right? That how
Yes,
their business can help change the world and grow. And they
that's
want that thrill of those extra commas in their bank account, right?
yes,
Extra zeros, but that's great. But the commas are where it actually is at. And
that's
so,
right. That's right.
so they want those
That's right.
commas. And but they find themselves starting to get a little hicked up, right? A little bit of struggle when it comes to actually executing to support that dream and that vision. And that is where I come in, pulling my years of experience and also being a small business owner myself to really help them thrive and grow through what I have as a proprietary method called IMOVE. And IMOVE stands for intuition, marketing, operations, velocity, and execution. So, with those in order, we often find ways that are congruent to the individual and their business to help them really grow, thrive, and get those extra commas and really get back to the reason why they got into business in the first place.
That's right. Sometimes we need that shift back, like, why did I do this? You get in an icky situation when it comes to your business and you're like, oh my gosh, how did I get here? And all you can think of is the negative. But that mindset shift is it works wonders because you have to go back to why did I start this in the first place? And then it all just comes to you.
Totally.
What do you when you think when I see your website, it says get good at business. What does that mean to like the everyday person?
Totally. So, a lot of business owners, when I'm working with them, it is like, I got into business because I wanted to make an impact in the world. I wanted to offer transformation and solutions. I wanted more freedom. I wanted more time. I wanted more money, right? There's reasons why we all got into business. And
Yes.
then you get into business and you're like, suddenly I have to be an expert copywriter and I've got to know about all the things on social media. And I've got to know all the back end systems and be the most organized person in the world. And I've got to know how to do my finances and my taxes.
That's right.
And so you often find yourself being like, can I just get good at business so I can get back to why I got into
I
business in the
love
first
that.
place? So getting good at business in my interpretation of it is really helping you grow and support and scale in a way of what you need, right? So maybe you're an expert in copywriting. Cool. We don't really need to focus on that then. We need to get good at these other areas and help you set up systems and processes and work through the mindsets and the beliefs and all of those things to help you get there. And so with
That's
the
right.
IMOVE method, right, we start with intuition for the I. And that's because we've all been here, right? Somebody
Yes.
said,
Yes.
somebody said, do this marketing thing and do it this way, and you'll get the success that you want. And you're like, cool,
Right.
do it. And you follow it to the letter, right? And then
Yes.
falls flat on its face. And you're like, what is wrong with me? Because it worked for that person and I'm in this group and it's working for other people. Like, I did exactly how they said. Why isn't it working for me? And that's
That's
because
right.
it's aligned to you, right? It's got to be congruent with you and your vision. So we start with the intuition first so that we can take congruent action that leads to massive marketing momentum, then build the operational processes to support that momentum. Then we look
Love
at how we can continue strategies to improve our and push forward with velocity without burnout and execute with ease. And so that's the IMOVE method. And through that, we've been able to help business owners get good at business in the areas that they need the support to get good at business in.
I love that. And I think one of the things that I've seen too, being a business owner is sometimes people jump in and it's like, oh, this is the latest trend, jumping on it, getting in it, and it's not even remotely close to anything they're passionate about. They just want to do it. And
Mhm.
so for me, even just being in the corporate world, I'm working now to transition myself out fully to be on my own. But, when you come in, when you're transitioning into the business world, when you see it, you're like, okay, so when I'm in the business world and I'm in the corporate America, I have to follow their trend, their rules, and it's not really my vision, but I can make it successful. So, but when they come into the business ownership side, you can't do the same thing. You've got to kind of be passionate about what it is, or you're just going to put forth no effort. I mean, corporate America, yes, because that check is still coming, right? But business ownership, if you're not passionate about it, or it's not something that that it's like deep in your heart, rooted where you want to see success, become successful. If that's not
Not going to
it's
work.
not going to
Well, and
work.
it is too. It's like this when you're in corporate world. I
Mhm.
see a little bit differently too. Like when you're in corporate world, because I spent 15 years there, right?
Yes.
You have, in most instances, I've worked in startups and I've worked in very well established
Me
corporations.
too.
I've
Yes.
gotten the breadth, right? So when you're in
Yes.
startup mode, you don't have this flexibility. When you're in more established, you do. But what it is like I can as a entrepreneur, right? So as the owner of my department or my division or my projects in a corporate setting, you still have a foundation of that paycheck, and you still have
Mhm.
a foundation of this is what the company does. And so then you're like, how can I apply this new idea to that? But
Yes.
you have the running room. Problem on the entrepreneurial side is you can't get caught up in shiny object syndrome because you don't it
Yes.
nine times out of 10 you don't have the foundations in place.
Yes.
Now you're trying to do this and this because you think you should, and it's not aligned with the direction of the company, it's not aligned with the product, it's not aligned with who you are and who you want to be. And so you get
That's
caught up in
right.
the goods. And then what happens is, and this is why we see the statistics, and it's like 75% of small business owners within their first 3 years quit, right? They're no longer
Right.
in business anymore. And
Right.
we see the numbers of that, and our automatic assumption is, oh, well, they didn't have enough money, they didn't get enough sales in, they didn't get enough revenue. That's why. And it's like, no, I would argue, my interpretation
Mhm.
is that those business owners, instead of taking a line of congruent action for them and their business and growing and doing what needs to be done in a strong, solid foundation being put in
Yes.
place, they're doing shiny object syndrome. And so there's no traction and momentum ever gained. And every failure
Right.
that comes from a misaligned, I should do this trend, every
Yes.
failure that comes from that chips away at your confidence and your mental and mindset to stay
It
in
does.
business. So after 3 years of letdowns and misalignment and wondering, what am I doing? A lot of people walk away. And so if you
They
can
do.
even start with like the IMOVE method and the intuition and that vision, then at the 3-year mark, you have that room to play and be like, cool, I'm going to try this now. I'm going to try this now because you've put the foundations in place, much like you would
That's
if you were in the corporate world where the foundations were put in place by the business owners and the founders and other
right.
members before you.
That's right. That's right. And I think one of the other areas, like when you're coming into a new small business or somebody just starting out, like for the listeners, what are some red flags where you're like, no, when you first come?
Don't do it.
Why?
Um, I would say there's probably 3.
Okay.
So the first one is that you hear a lot about scaling, right? Scale your business,
Mhm.
scale your business, scale your business. Well,
Mm,
scaling can only happen after you've built something to scale. So I see a lot of business owners who are just starting out who are like, yep, I only want to work 20 hours a week and I just want to scale my business. I just want to scale my business. And it's like, okay, so what is your product? What solution does your product or your service offer? And they can't
right.
even tell me that. Or I had a call with someone the other day and she's like, yeah, I really want to look for investors for my company. I'm like, perfect. I've helped enterprise startups get millions upon millions of dollars in investment funding and be valued in millions of dollars. And so I'm like, yeah,
Right.
it's no problem. Here's what our steps would be. And I said, but very first and foremost, I need you to be able to answer. I didn't say it that way, but I was like, very first and foremost, if I'm an investor, why would I give you my money?
Mm.
And she, being a new business owner, couldn't answer that. And
Wow.
that's totally fine, right? We can grow and get into that
Right.
space. And those are the
Right.
questions asked to prompt you to get that growth. But she's sitting here going, I have this company and I want somebody to invest in it to help me scale. And it's like, but you
Right.
don't even have the foundations in place for why an investor would invest with you. So, like, we've got to get
Right.
those things in place before we're suddenly thinking, I'm going to have this scaled company and only work a certain amount of hours, or people are just going to give me their money. Like, as a person starting out, we've
Yes.
got to put in the work and the grit. And I cannot express this enough. Foundations, foundations, foundations. So that's the
Yes.
first one.
Yes.
First red flag is I've got to scale my company and it's only a month old. Right?
Yes.
Uh, red flag number 2. And as a business coach, I see this a lot. Well, so and so has millions of dollar businesses and they said to do this.
Mm.
And I'm like, awesome. Will that actually help you grow your business? Going back to that intuition and that congruent action. Will it
Right.
actually help you grow your business? Or that's a business that's 10 years done, like down the road. They've done all the hard work, they've put all the things,
That's
and they're saying,
right.
hey, if you're a business like mine who's been in business for 10 years, you need to do this. And I've got somebody who's on year 3 being like, now I got to do this. And it's not
Mhm.
aligned, it's in a should space. They think they should do it because someone told them. And so
Right.
I say red flag number 2 is not listening to, like, well, red flag number 2 is listening to people that are not giving you the advice that you need for where you're at.
Yes. That's so deep. Yes. Yes.
Because it's so important. Like,
It
I
is.
can get that advice all day long, but if I'm saying like, okay, I've got to generate 10,000 leads a month and my business doesn't even have a solid product in place or a solid
Right.
offering or service, and I don't know the values, I don't have testimonials, I don't have things to help me know what my clients actually get out of working with me.
Right.
Doing an emphasis, I got to get 10,000 leads, isn't, you're going to pay for
Mm-mm.
10,000 leads and get nowhere,
That's
right?
right.
And so
Right.
listening to the people who can give you the advice for where you're at, not where they're at or where they think you should be based off of their experiences.
Because there are some companies that are like, if you on Facebook, you can be just, especially being a business owner, you see them things pop up all the time because it
Yeah.
filters because you're in business. But you see those ones that are like, in 24 hours, we can get you 1,000 customers if you just start this funnel and start this plan.
Well,
I mean, it's there. So people are like,
yeah. Well, and I had a client that we worked together one-on-one. It was so funny because I don't think she saw me as a business coach, which was hilarious because I was like, I love these conversations and it's so insightful. But so we were working one-on-one, and one of the things we were focusing on, and we focus on marketing efforts and we focus on operations and strategies and executing, like those pieces all come into play, but the mindset also is a big part of it. So
yes.
as she was playing into, she actually came to me. She had signed up for a Black Friday deal that I had, which was one-on-one mentoring. And
Yes.
so we've moved into one-on-one mentoring. In the very first meeting with me, she was like, look, if I don't make $6,000 this month, I'm out of business. I'm like,
Oh,
great, let's do it. Right. And so I'm like, we're not going to focus on long-term strategies and scalability
right.
and all these things. I'm like, we're going to focus on getting you clients right now, here, today. And it was so fascinating because, like, as we got to certain parts, her fear would come in. And I was like, look, that fear is because you're a business owner. That fear is non-existent next month when you don't have a business if we don't make our money.
Right.
And she was like,
Right.
you're right.
Right.
And so we kind of came to this, like, we don't have time to coddle our beliefs. Like, either you're in business and we've got to be making some money and helping people now, or
Right.
wait a month and those beliefs will be gone.
That's
And
right.
so we had to kind of really decide where we were at. But in that, she had said we were working on the mindset of resentment, because
Mm.
she'd been in business for about 3 years and was kind of resenting her audience and her clients because she was still struggling in like, I've got a month and I will be out of business, right? So there was a lot of resentment.
Right.
So we were focusing on that and working through that and clearing that out. And she said, yeah, I paid a person thousands of dollars that
Wow.
they said that they would get me to $30,000 months. And I signed up with them wanting $30,000 months
My
and
goodness.
got nowhere. And I was like, here's the problem with this, right? And not the problem with my client and not the problem with that
Right.
coach, just the situation, right?
Right.
Is that coach didn't it's not segment, but she didn't qualify, right? She didn't say, do you already have an audience that's engaged of this many people? Do you
Right.
already have a product and service in place? Those foundations that we've been talking about, right? Just to
Mhm.
say, hey, let me drop you in, you're going to make $30,000 months without any foundations.
Right.
It's not going to happen. And then you get my client who was like, I'm so frustrated. Yeah, I'm mad at myself for like falling into that trap. And I'm like, I don't think it's not about shaming yourself and like falling into the trap. She wasn't trapping you. She just didn't qualify that you were the right person for her program because you didn't have the right things in place. So it was like, well,
Right.
we got to get the right things in place. And so happy ending, right?
Yeah.
We did more than her goal, right? She's got the systems now.
Wow.
Awesome. We've saved the business. She's continuing to move forward.
Yes.
But my
Yes.
point is that if you're falling prey to like, I've got to hurry and sign up for this and oh, 30,000 months is what I want. So I'm going to sign up with this person. Like you've really got to tap into what do I need to grow now versus where am I wanting to grow to? And
Yes.
how big is the gap between those? Because if the gap's
Right.
this big, right? If it's a little bit, a couple of steps, yes, you want to be with people who can help you get to where you want to go. But if
Right.
you don't have
Right.
the foundations in place and that gap is massive, you've got to go a couple steps at a time. Otherwise, you start to
You
look in this, you live in this failure as a small business owner.
You do, you do. And what about for those people that are transitioning from corporate to business? You know, the biggest fear is that leap. Like,
Mhm.
when do you take that leap? Sometimes it's like, that security of that corporate job, which is not really security. We all know that, right? We know but it's just that security. Like, what is your advice to those people who are on that side of the business spectrum? Like, I'm ready to cross. What is your advice for those individuals?
I would say a couple of things. One is really looking at why you're making the leap. Right?
Mhm.
Because some people are like, I'm just going to run my own business because I hate corporate and I can't stand it. It doesn't matter what business I'm going into. I just got to get out of corporate. I got to be my own boss.
Right,
Right.
right.
And that's a setup where, again, it's like, okay, cool. You're feeling called to not be in corporate anymore, but let's get some foundations and things in place before you just mad dog leap. Right.
Yes,
But
yes.
but then I think
Well,
that's when you look at the others where it's like, I really feel called to this and I've been in corporate and I just need to make the leap. I
right.
would look at it in a couple of ways. One, if you can get if you can be working on your business on the side and get
Mhm.
to the amount of monthly income in the business, I should backtrack. Monthly profit in the business, that's where you can take your pay from.
Mhm.
Your monthly profit in the business of what you're making in your corporate job, that tells me that you've put the foundations in place working on it part-time. So when you do
Right.
go full-time, you are covered and now you can triple it because you have more of the bandwidth to actually
More
get into
time.
it.
Yes,
Yep. But
yes.
I see a lot of business owners that have shifted over and their first year, 2 years really struggle because they didn't offset it that way. They just were like, I've got to get out, I've got to get out, I've got to get out. Now, even
Right.
if it's I got to get out and I feel called to this, again, if you can build it up and then leave, then you're set up for a lot more quote unquote security, right? Because nothing is
Mhm.
secure really, but you're set up for a lot more of that. I would say the other thing
Yes.
is that it's got to be a business, and you mentioned this earlier, right? It's got to be a business you care about.
Mhm.
Right? Because we get by in the corporate world where it's like, maybe I really care about this. I was the type of person who I actually loved my corporate career, but
Yes.
I did my business on the side and I loved having both of them.
Right.
And then it was like a few things happened and I was like, oh, yeah, this is my sign that I've got to go out on my own. I'm
Yes.
holding on to
Yes.
this. But then the
Yes.
mindset is like, that's that stability that you have. You
Mhm.
don't like that reoccurring paycheck, the team to bounce ideas off of, all of those things kind of they go away, right? When you become an
Mhm.
entrepreneur. And so you have to really build all of that back up. And
Yes.
additionally, I would say part of that crossover of if you are in corporate and building your entrepreneurial journey and you can get that to where it needs to be to then leave comfortably, that shows that you are self-driven and motivated and can build out your own next steps.
Mhm.
Whereas in corporate, I mean, I was running departments, right?
Right.
From scratch. Like, hey, here we have this idea, take it, zero employees and team members to 30, one service to 5, one language to 5. I spent 6
Right.
months in Edinburgh, Scotland, setting up our EMEA location and team, right? For a department that I spearheaded. So like I
Yes.
was making all my decisions. But even then, it was guided by the corporate
It
mission,
is.
guided by the
Yes.
corporate direction.
That's
When you move
right.
to entrepreneurship, like you are the corporate direction, like you are
Right.
that. And so you've got to be able to build and put your own planning, your own project management, your own drive, your own
Mhm.
scheduling. All of it has to be put into place. Otherwise, you will go up against that mountain over and over again, a month after month. And those are foundational pieces. So it's like, if you're going to cross
Right.
over, build it up. And that also gives you the skills to triple down when you go full entrepreneurial journey.
That's right. That's good. I mean, you hear those stories of people who, were in corporate and, may have got laid off or they may have, and then they just were like, they took that opportunity to build up their business and it was a huge success. And,
Right.
then you hear people who leave to try to just catch this money train and then they flop. So, I was just curious as to what your advice was for the in between, those
Yeah.
that really
I
want
think
to take it. I
those
guess
that want to
another.
take it, those that want to take it and are feeling very called towards it, I would
Mhm.
say that you probably already have all the skills in place. Like you already have the skills. It's at that point, it's an 80% mindset game. So you're really looking at your self-talk. You're really looking at your comparison. If you're comparing to people, you're
Yeah.
really looking at what your goals are and how you're working towards them. Like it's 80% mindset once you've got the foundational components in place. So if you're one of those people who's mid crossover, right? You and are really called to it. So it's not a leap and it's
Right.
not I go shoved out, but it's like, this is really what I want. Focusing on your mindset would be my biggest piece of advice because it's 80% mindset game after the foundations are in place.
And I think another important factor is when you start to elevate in your business, which I've noticed even for myself, your circle elevates, your
Mhm.
circle changes, right? And so it has to, almost like it has to, because those people that are in your circle before might not be, if they're not entrepreneurial driven, it's just, bouncing off ideas to no man's land. You have to have that circle around you. So then also when you do develop and you have that circle of entrepreneurs or other business minded people around you, one of the other issues is when it becomes competition or when they start to, and that's where you don't want to go. I feel like as a business owner, just go on your own path. If it takes you longer to get to a certain point, that's okay. But in some mindset, it's like, oh, well, this person got this, this, and this. This should be easy. Let me go get it, and then it just becomes this. And then, then you start looking at your circle like, what in the world? Who are these people? So how do you stay your own course without, you're going to be you're going to be coming up along with other business owners and your circle's going to shift because the circles that you're in, the events you're invited to or the
Mhm.
engagements you're speaking at, but just reminding yourself, what advice could you give just to stay in your own lane? You will get there at your own time.
Yeah. So it's funny because the IMOVE method, the move part is so
Mhm.
project, task, implementation, results oriented. but the I is there first for this exact reason. And I actually have a framework. I don't particularly sell this, but I do teach it as part of intuition, and offer blueprints and things on it, which is, so every person has over 60, so 60 intuitive strengths. And everybody has them, but then each one is like a unique fingerprint. So it's custom to you, how you use them and when and where. And so so when you know your top intuitive strength for business strategy, then you know when something is aligned, or if something is, oh, that looks pretty, that's a shiny object, or that worked for that person, I want that, so now I want this, right? Now you can know if it's aligned action. And I like to use the terminology seagulls versus land. So back in the day, right, ships crossing the ocean, 3 to 5 days before they would hit land, they'd start to see birds, right? They start to see seagulls.
Yeah.
Well, when you see a seagull, it's an indicator land is there. So when an opportunity comes to us, we've got to determine, is it land? Is it the direction I need to go? Or is it a seagull that's pointing me that I'm heading in the right direction, land will get here, right? And that helps you determine opportunities. So for example, I'm happy to share a real world story.
Absolutely.
So my top intuitive strength for business strategy is the strength of adventure. And what that means is that if an opportunity comes my way, if it feels like I'm going to go hike up a mountain, and let's say, I'm putting on my backpack and the water and got to get things ready and packed and the boots and I got to get the right socks. And it's all with that, like, I've got to do this and I don't want to do this. And we're going to go hike up the mountain. I don't want to do it. Right. Yeah, the view will be great on the top, but I don't want to do all the work to get there. Right.
Right.
That's not a sense of adventure, right? A sense of adventure is, oh my gosh, I'm going to put on my backpack and we're going to hike up this mountain and like, we're going to stay at this base camp and then go here and here. It's like going to be the most amazing adventure ever, the most amazing journey. And like, there's a big difference. And so for me, when an opportunity comes my way to determine, is it land or is it a seagull, is, does it have that sense of adventure for me? And if it does, then I know that it is aligned.
Yes.
So I had
that is an amazing way to think of that. Yes.
And that's how you can prevent like, comparison. And I'm just going to go here. It's like, is this aligned to what I need? And being able to know your top strength when it comes to that is huge.
Right.
And I actually have an example of my own sense of adventure. So I had I'll make it a short story, but I had an opportunity where I had the thought 2 weeks previous of, I can be an 8-figure entrepreneur. And I had to count out, like, what is 8 figures, which is a minimum of $10 million. But I was like, I don't know. I don't even know where that number came from because I don't even know what 8 figures was. So I had to count it out and be like, okay, $10 million minimum. So that thought came in, and then I was like, all right, well, I don't want to have to figure out all the math of how much I'm going to have to sell my products to get there.
Yes.
I'm just going to forego the expectations, and we're just going to pretend that I'm going to be an 8-figure entrepreneur. So I did several things in this 2-week period, just kind of all around the mindset of being an 8-figure entrepreneur and what that looks like. And then I went to an event. First off, I didn't want to go to the event. And then my intuition was like, don't be lazy. You need to go. I'm like, fine, I'll get ready and drive the 2 hours, just show up at 9, like all of that. So show up there, and I end up meeting this woman, and she's like, how come you're not in how come I don't know you? And me being funny, I'm like, I don't know. How come you don't know me? Like, that's a you problem, not a me problem, right? Like, just so funny, right? And just kind of joking around. And she's like, no, I need to connect with you. I'm like, okay, cool. So we share phone numbers. So the next day she messages me, and it turns out that she lives 10 minutes away from me. We're like in the same neighborhood and have never had any connections with each other. So
wow.
Like, I want you to come over to my house and like, let's just talk. I'm like, okay. So she has an international women's network and does TV shows and all sorts of things like that.
Wow.
And I have my own podcast and things. So I'm thinking she's going to help me she's going to have me come over and try to sell me to be on her platform.
Mm-hmm.
I go over, we're talking and whatnot. And she goes, yeah, I think I need you to be a member of my executive team. And I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah. Tell me more. Right. So we have this whole conversation. She ends up offering me the chief executive officer role at her company. And I tap into, is this a sense of adventure? Am I feeling a sense of adventure with this? Or am I feeling like, oh, it's going to be a lot of work and it's not my company and da, 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 da.
Yes.
And I got the sense of adventure. So I'm like, all right. So signed on as like a contractor. So the monthly payment comes to me as through my business and it's all part of that. So fast forward, sign the contracts. She then tells me, by the way, we're already working with a mergers and acquisitions broker. And they believe that the company, as we grow it, could sell for $1 billion.
Wow.
Right? So cool. So I'm like, awesome. Like, I'll work with them. We'll get the business plans. We'll put the projections.
Yes.
We'll get it all in place. And then I come home because we were meeting at her house. Right. And so at that time, so I come home and I'm like, my contract gives me equity in the company. So I go and I look and my contract is 1% equity in the company. We're selling for $1 billion in 3 to 5 years. 1% of $1 billion is $10 million, which is exactly the 8 figures.
Oh my goodness.
And I had no concept of who she was, what the company was, any of that 2 weeks prior. And it just like dropped in my lap. And that's the crazy thing is it's like by following my intuition, these opportunities came and supported and lined up for me. And then I could still follow my intuition and say, yep, this feels like a sense of adventure. This is the right next best step for my business strategy. Like, let's. Right. And so coming back full circle of my long tangent story, the answer to your question, in my humble opinion, is
love that.
Knowing your top intuitive strengths as a business owner at any stage is a huge help to making sure that you continue to take congruent action to move you where you need to be versus I should do this. I need to do this because so-and-so is doing this and they're making more money than me. Why am I not? Like that just gets you in this very spiral downward space, which takes us to that first 3 years of business. So many business owners fail because of that.
That's right. And I love that because I feel like that provides what you just did, a lot of clarity and just having your own example of, it's almost just like having that faith, just believing that, and I'm totally gonna, my takeaway is the adventure. If it's not adventure, that's it. It's not for me.
Well, and for a lot of people, so a lot of people, they'll define it as and mine is that sense, like literally, like, am I excited to put on the backpack and hike up the mountain? Right. That's my strength of adventure. But other people can have like their top intuitive strength can be like a sense of whole body.
Yes.
And so for them, it's like, if it's not a hell yes, it's a hell no.
Right.
And so it's like, if I don't feel full body, like, yeah, let's do this. It's a hell no, I'm not touching it. And like, so it's really knowing and understanding what works for you, but it's the same kind of concept. It's like, how does this make me feel?
Yes.
At a soul level versus how do I think this will make me feel if I actually achieve it? And that's a big difference.
Another important thing that you discussed is like, when you came with a presentation, from the other lady about her business, you went in, I'm going in as a, as a contractor or a partner or, however, not your employee, right?
Yeah.
And some places they are so bent on, well, if you're not coming on as an employee, then you're just, and then so people get thinking, oh, maybe I should, shift. But you stood to, your ground, like, I'll come on as this.
Yep. And now my company has that reoccurring money coming in, which if we're going to look at the operations and foundational piece, if I was an employee, I'm getting taxes pulled out. I've got all these other things. As a contractor, now that money comes in and I need to navigate how it's going to be tax deductible because I'm working from home and all those other pieces. So that was
Yes.
helpful and beneficial. But then
Yes.
also now my company has
Mhm.
1% owned equity in another company. Right. So now
Right.
I've expanded my ability for my company to grow, and I've expanded my collaboration opportunities, not
That's
just
right.
coming in and saying, hey, I'm working 9 to 5, let's get the job done. Very
Yeah,
big difference in how you show up
it
with that.
is. It is. And just that move like elevated your business just that much more. Like, I mean, it's amazing. So what was like your aha moment? Okay, when I think about like the genius mindset, what was your aha moment to like for that transition? Like, okay, corporate, it's time to say bye-bye. I'm going here. Like,
Right, right.
what was that? What was that like for you? What was that when you're like, this, I can do this. This is the point. I need to go now.
Yeah. So unfortunately, mine was I hadn't followed my intuition and I put myself in kind of a rough situation. So I I was headhunted from my position where, like I said, I grew the department. I was the head of the department. I
Yes.
had brought in colleagues to support. Like, I mean, we were crushing it. And in a 3-year period to go to 0 employees to 30
Hmm.
employees to international locations. We did work on behalf of major global corporations like Google,
Yes.
Waze, others. And so, like, massive growth. And I actually really, really loved that. And I was headhunted by a company and did 4 interviews. And because I was like, I'm not going to shut the door on opportunities. I'm going to see where
Right.
I'm going to see where it
Right.
takes me and follow it, and
Yes.
if it makes sense. And so I got headhunted by this company, did 4 interviews, and after every interview I told my husband, I was like, I'm not going to get this, like they're not going to give it to me. Like, we're just not, it's just not a good fit. I don't think they really
Right.
understand what I could bring to the table. And every time I get another interview and I'm like, I don't know why I'm getting more interviews, right? Because this is not going to be a great fit. And then
Right.
they made me the offer, and the offer was for a significant amount of more money than what I was making currently.
Yes.
And in my, which also says, like, this is a side note, but like previous to leaving and now being in my own entrepreneurial space, if
Mhm.
I left a company I was at, I'd never left for more than $20,000 to $30,000 a year extra bump. So that
Yes.
tells you, like,
Yes.
that was already my standard. And then they went above and beyond. So it was like,
Yes.
right. And I knew it. Like, I just, that sense of adventure wasn't there. And I was
Yes.
just like, oh, I don't, but the money's too good to pass up. Right. And
Yes.
so I walked away
Yes.
from the job that I loved to go work for this other company. Now, this other company was a great company, but it was, for me, it was very square peg, round hole.
Mhm.
And I worked there for about a year and a half. And for the first 9, 10 months, I've never not been good at my job. Like, I've never not been a leader. I've never not
Yes.
excelled, provided, performed results. Like, my whole entire career, like, that has never been a problem.
Yes.
And I've always been well liked, well received. Like, we're a team, all of it. For the first 9 months, I was like, what is wrong with me? Like, I just cannot break this seal of this culture.
Yes.
And I just cannot, like, get things going the way that they need to go. And it was all of these things. And then I had
Yes.
a coworker who had recently joined, and I knew her from another opportunity where we'd worked together. And she was like, I'm so sorry. I have to ask you this. And she goes, and if you can't tell me, I know, because I was executive. And so it's like, you can't really talk about the company and certain
Right.
things. And so she's like, so
Right.
I'm really, I just need to know, like, I'm going through, and she listed about 9, 10 things that were all almost verbatim everything I had been going through.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, it's not me, right?
Right.
It's not, it's a
Right.
pattern of behavior. It's the culture. Like, she's
Mhm.
also having problems in the exact same way I am. And so I'm
Mhm.
so grateful for her because she really, like, pointed it out for me, where I was like,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter how hard I try. And, like, I lost a lot of confidence and how hard I beat myself up. Like, it doesn't matter. Right. Cause she
Right.
was also like
Right.
a total, like, you know how you look at yourself and you're like, yeah, I'm pretty good at what I do. she is a
Right.
rock star at what she does, and she's going through the same exact things. And I'm like, and I'm actually pretty much a rock star at what I do too. And I'm going through the same stuff. And so
Right.
it really was like a big shift where I'm like, okay, I'm not going to keep on trying to fit in here and make this work. I'm going to
Yes.
try it my own way. And it just continued to indicate to me, and again, great company, just
Mhm.
square peg round hole, continued to indicate to me that like, it is time, you got to go out on your own. It is time, you got to go out
Yes.
on your own. And
Yes.
then it was like, okay, what do I want my life to look like? And I mean, like I said, I loved work. And so it's like, well, honestly, like
Right.
the two things that I love the most while I'm doing my side business, because I was doing it on the side, I was like, the two things I love the most are creating content for my business and coaching. Like those are my two
Yes.
favorite things. And so it was like, I'm not going to get creating content. I don't enjoy it for this brand as I would for myself. And
Right.
I don't get to coach here. And I don't even get to coach up and be a part of the conversations because they just don't get me. And so like,
Yes. Yes.
and it's not like, oh, hey, I got to be listened to, but also like if you're working for a place, you want to be seen and heard.
Heard. That's right.
And I
Yeah.
had like there were other members of the team who were like, I'm struggling with this on my team. And I was like, I've totally been there. I had that happen when I was at this company, and this is what we did to solve it. And it totally changed it. Like, you can't solve the symptoms. Like, we've really got to go down to the root of it. And they were like,
Mhm.
be on a video call, and they would just look at me and then be like, okay, so anyways, and just completely disregard.
Yes.
And I was
Yes.
like, I love
Yes.
coaching, and I can't even supplement some coaching into this because
Yes.
there was a wall around it. And I knew from the start, my intuition was like, this isn't the right move. And my
Mhm.
intuition's like, it's time to go. It's time to go. And so like
Yes.
the breath of relief when I was like, yep, it's time. And I'm just gonna go out. I trust myself. I've got the foundations in place. Like, we're gonna do this was huge.
Yes.
So it wasn't like a singular moment, but it was really like a collection of moments where ultimately I'm like, man, I should have just listened to my intuition, but also a collection of moments that were there to put me into the right spot where I was like, it is time. Like, before
Yes.
any other company, I've just kept running them both because I loved both so much. But then it shifted and I
Yes.
was like, you know what? I'm ready to move out of corporate, take all that experience and help
Yeah.
other people, but I'm ready to move out of corporate and do it on my own.
And I share the same experience as you with the being in the corporate, and you're like, well, I think, and then you hear,
The
or you get
crickets.
that look, and then the next thing, months down the line, they're like, well, we should. And I'm like,
I think I said that.
yeah, that was me. So I get that. I 100% get that. Where can everybody find more information about you, and where can they go to seek your services?
Absolutely. So my website is getgoodatbusiness.com. Every social handles and everything are either Taylor Proctor or Get Good at Business. So you can find me that way. And I would actually love to invite, one of the things that we kind of talked about briefly is surrounding yourself
Yes,
by other business owners who
that's
are
right.
in their own lanes, but you can be inspired by and connect with, but help you stay in your own lane and really grow
Yeah.
and evolve together. So I have a mastermind that I launched about a month and a half ago. We have 17 team members in there already from a variety of different businesses. And it's called the
Wow.
Get Good at Business Mastermind. And it's $27 the first month to get your feet wet and $47 a month after that, because I believe getting good at business should be accessible. So I would love to invite our listeners here, if that sounds like something you want to check out at least, come check it out and let's all evolve and
Absolutely.
grow and get good at business together.
I love it. I love it. And I am so thankful for you being on this show, because you have given me so much insight as far as business, corporate America. I think all of it. And like I said, my biggest takeaway is adventure.
I love it.
Definitely, that's a great way to look at it. And I will forever treasure that. So thank you so much for being on this show. And do you have any final words for any of our guests before we end today?
I think if I was going to leave with one parting
Yes.
wisdom or one thing for everyone listening to take away would be, truly, we live in a world where we're bombarded by information and you should do it, and this is the right way and this is the wrong way, and very like
Yes.
polarizing space. And
Yes.
the truth of it is that when you can connect into what makes the most sense for you and take action that way, the
Yes.
path of life and the path of business is worlds easier. And so, well, you could focus on the rest of the move method without the
Yes.
eye, the intuition, it won't go as far as your full potential and capable of. So, my key takeaway on all of this, the key thing, if you learn nothing else, would be
Yes.
follow and trust that intuition. It's not going to lead you astray, and it's going to set you up for longer term and easier term success.
Yes. Thank you so much for being a guest today, Taylor. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you all for joining in for another episode of the Genius Mindset. You all have an amazing day.